Pa, plan je do 5, ali... Vidjet ćemo kako će ići. Sumnjam da će biti puna radionica. Trebalo je biti 20 ljudi, pa tako se planirao neki grupni rad i neke grupe i tako dalje. Ali... Biće puno hands-on više. Personal touch. Tu su svi iz Hrvatske, naši priča Hrvatske.
Nešto, prevedi se.
Prezentacija na engleskom i ja bih trebao na engleskom pričati zbog international duha. A pošto se snima, tako da jednom mogu pitati Tomislava koliko je lakše, da li ima nekom da je onako problematično, vjerojatno nije. Ok, super. Ovo ćemo na engleski. Ok, malo da se... Budemo još malo pričati. poziciju.
Da. Nešto tu. Neće govoriti.
Mislim da se nije da, možemo ovako početi.
Spojeno je sve.
Je, sve.
Kako što provjeravamo
Tu je sve okej.
Nije, vi ste na laptopu ili?
Da, na laptopu. A mislim da ti ovi drugi workshopi zbog device-ova krcaju.
A neki su nekako izrazali, neki su 20 kako.
A, okej. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to workshop Implementing Blockchain to Business. I will be your host for today. My name is Luka Klancir, and as I said in the little intro section, we'll do this workshop on English, since it's being recorded and streamed, and it will be later on pushed upon the website for general view. Although I didn't think this will be like that, because I have several business cases and several things that I want to share with you specifically, because you actually paid for the workshop, and I think you should get some extra value from it. But nevertheless, today we'll be talking a little bit more about implementation of actual blockchain technology into various businesses. I will show you some examples. And first of all, I have to say a disclaimer. This is my first workshop. I have never done a workshop before. I have done talks and some presentations. So please.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, I also like very minimalistic presentations, black and white. Clean. It's not that I didn't have time, because first time when I started preparing this, it was like it was organized like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Then the first thing that I went on YouTube and wrote how to prepare a workshop. And then this cheerful lady said to me that you need at least 8 to 12 weeks for a great workshop. So I was immediately up to the minimum threshold. But okay, I think it will be a good one. So first of all, have you all installed Slack or Telegram? You have it, everybody. So if you are on Slack, if you are on the channel for our workshop, you can see a link there. Have you seen it? So I put this link here. So if is everybody in the split text city, right? Slack. You are okay. Do you have Slack application on mobile devices or Telegram, whatever is easier for you? Yeah, you can head over to these links. Telegram split biz, or Slack split text it. You can also write it into the web browser if you don't have an application. It's just for sharing all the documents, and the presentation is inside, so you don't have to write anything. You can just scroll through and write your own notes. So just let's set this up. Those are the links, and for the Telegram channel, I'll just put the link inside. Yeah, Telegram's so buzzing. just let me know when you are in. You should probably find a Google Drive folder with a lot of files, documents, groups, and everything. So that should be. This is basically where we'll be sharing all the notes, and probably later on when we will be doing the group work, it will be easy for communication.
Kako ući u channel?
Channel treba preko znači blok split vs možeš tu u channels i browse the channel i
Da.
F workshop. Okay, let's jump on. So, what will be our agenda for the day, for the full 8 hours? We will see. I planned it for 8 hours, but we'll see how it will work. So this whole first part is intended as an intro section, a little bit introduction, a little bit some of the concepts we will work with. Then we will jump to the second slot, which is business validation. I will go through the specific agenda for that. Then a little bit more about the economic and marketing side, how all this fits together. And then we should have somewhere lunch, we'll have breaks in between. And in the afternoon, I have envisioned group work and presentations and wrap up. We'll be working on 2 interesting business cases, but more on that later on. So, in intro session, we'll run a little bit to introduce each of the participants, myself included, and some of the basic concepts we will work with. This is also based on the introduction to get the sense of where you're coming from, what's your level of knowledge, and how long have you been in the blockchain space, or how interested you are in the same. And this is intended for this first hour per slot. I've prepared like slots of 1 hour, and then 10 to 15 minute breaks for coffee, smokes, however. So we can get to rest. It's like completely academic, you know, Untitled Chapter style. Then the second slot is the business validation part. I will present or introduce to you the blockchain model canvas, and we'll first kick off with the standard business model canvas, dive into the blockchain and see how it all fits into validating business ideas on the blockchain or with blockchain associated projects. Run through all the aspects and definitions, and then I will showcase to you several projects that I work on and several industries that we will cross-match and see how you can actually, when you have a client or you are working on a client, how you can actually check and see which parts have to be implemented, which parts are not so good on the blockchain, so you can get a general overview of a business case and how it fits into the industry. And yeah, some promising industries where blockchain is of added value and where it's not really. Then we have the economic and marketing aspect, a little bit of a market overview. So I intend to run through several statistics, figures, so you can see how this market is actually developing and in which direction it's going. And then I want to introduce you to some financial models and how you can actually fund those projects, like what possibilities do they exist in the blockchain space. And of course, the main focus will be on ICOs, how you can because mostly when you will be working here with your project or with clients' projects, an ICO question will pop up here and there. So I intend to give you all the knowledge I have in how you should approach facilitating an ICO. And this is where I will show you most of the things that you see in the drive. There is a lot of like templates, tokenization plans, proposals, and everything. So we'll run through each of those documents and see how you can use it maybe later on in your business, or if you will be consulting another client. That is mostly intended for the economic aspect of the whole workshop. And with this we end actually the theoretical part. So most of the time I will be talking. Of course, now is the time to say if you have any questions. So this is a workshop you can ask. Let's discuss. Let's draw here on the board, and let's make it really interactive. And I will try to answer any of your questions which you might have during some of those information or data that is presented. Furthermore, then we have like a 1 hour lunch break. I'm not sure how the team has organized. Hello. I'm not sure how the team has organized the whole lunch session. If there will be some kind of organized lunch, or you will go on to some lunch break or something. So here is 1 hour for you to use this time and come back refreshed, because the afternoon is intended for group work. And so I planned that there will be like 20 participants. How many is actually here? It's 4, 6, 7, 8, 15, 16. We need 4. But so the intention here, I mean, we can work, it's not a problem, will be divided into 4 working groups, consisting of 4 team members. And I prepared 2 business cases, which will, 16. Yes. 2 business cases will be showcased, and 2 teams will be working on the same case. So what I want from this whole theoretical part is that I want to show you like information and data and things that you should use in your business validation and modeling of ICOs and everything. And we will try to use it on a business case, actually 2 business cases. And each team will be, so 2 teams will have 1 business case. So we can later on present and cross-match a little bit how different teams will approach solving the problems, and how the other team also approach. So we can cross-compare and discuss the solutions. And yeah, depends on the implementation of the business case with the blockchain model canvas. For this group work, I see that some of you have laptops. The intention here is that one group member has a laptop, because I have created groups on the docs, and you can, all the templates are there, so you'll be working there. So there's no need for I actually printed. I know I don't like paper. But this is for later, so I think we will work with it. For the newcomers, as I said, this is my first workshop, so I intended to make native the digital completely. And so we will be wrapping up with the presentations. You should have to choose 1 presenter, 10 minutes each presentation, discuss the problem, the solution, and the blockchain canvas demo. So this is for the late afternoon, and generally here I think we'll be probably ending. I have this whole session wrap up of the workshop, where we will run through all the stuff that we went through today, and I don't know how plan how long the group work will take. So there's buffer time for group work. It will be split into this last hour of the whole day. And of course, open discussions for any questions, for any information. Maybe you have some project that you want to discuss here and validate, so I'm open for that here and after the workshop, so please do catch me up. So yeah, let's jump onto the intro session. So when I first watched this YouTube video how to create a workshop, the lady said that it's at most important, if you have group work and so on, that you have to introduce yourself and that each participant has to introduce. So why can't we just skip the introduction section if it's so hated? Well, I even checked psychotactics, you know. Yes, you can, but you will find that it's very hard for your audience. Later on gets disoriented, especially if there is group work. And I think it will be a good way for networking and for more flawless flow of the workshop. So let me kick off the intro section from my side. Okay. So my background, where I come from, is from software engineering. So I studied on the Faculty of Organization Informatics in Varaždin. I only finished bachelor's. Unfortunately, I had to quit the master's because of my entrepreneurial paths. So I come from a technical background, but mostly with my line of work, I was pushed more into the business and product management, so to say. And most of my early work or career was in a digital agency called The Gordian. I worked there almost 3 years as a product manager. Worked with a lot of clients from telecom companies to, I don't know, Adriatic luxury hotels, Heineken, Dell. So I encountered a lot of business cases, a lot of different technologies, a lot of different industries. But my current occupation is that I'm the CEO of AC Labs. It's a small digital agency. I run with 2 co-founders and 3 employees. And we started as a development agency late 2016, but in 2017, with the whole blossoming of the crypto market, we steered the agency a little bit more into the crypto domain, into the crypto space. And that was mostly because in 2013, I founded with one of my colleagues on faculty, still in college, I founded Hrvatski Bitcoin portal. So I don't know if you have heard about this news portal. It was our student project at that day. And the interesting thing is how I got into the whole blockchain and crypto space is that I was on a student exchange in Austria. And I first time that I encountered that was 2013. We just joined the EU, so there was still not SEPA, Single Euro Payment Area. So the transaction fees when my mother or when my parents sent me like 100 euros were enormous, and I was like, the fuck, how can this be so expensive? So I started researching the market and found Bitcoin. And this is where I got caught up. And then I started researching. From that whole experience, started the Croatian Bitcoin portal. It was first intended to be like Croatian Bitcoin community, but the idea was to write and learn and put it somewhere on a blog and let other friends learn it. And from there on, it grew. Although my whole business and everything went more into the development direction, so I wasn't very much actively engaged in crypto, more privately. And in 2017, we combined the agency and the portal and started working with with several ICOs and projects I will show you later. Also, I'm the board member of UBIC, the newly formed Croatian Association for Cryptocurrencies. So I really amazed by this technology and really want to make sustainable business and be as much as involved as I can. And today, what is my delivery expectation for this workshop is to actually give you all the resources, everything that I know, and you will see in the drive folder. So all that I have compiled and that I work with the clients, with proposals, with templates, with businesses, to give you some value for this workshop that you can use and implement into your businesses or projects or startups or with clients and so on. So for the actual projects in crypto space, the first project that I started working was Providence Crypto Casino in May last year, which unfortunately failed. And from that ICO I learned very much how to not run an ICO and what not to do. Currently our company Labs is consulting to Croatian ICOs, Johnson Spring and Kuka, maybe you've heard about those. And I have several business cases that I will showcase later on in the presentation that are not yet named, and some NDAs are not yet signed, but some parts I can show, and it will be a very good flow for the whole business validation idea. With that, I have took a little bit more time for the introduction, just so you know who is speaking here and who is delivering all this information. So now I would like to have each of you, I don't have to stand up, just sit and take 1 minute to tell everybody here who you are, what background do you come from, how long have you been in the crypto blockchain space, so what are your areas of interest, and I would like to know most what are your expectations of this workshop. So let me start like here and with the gentleman in the front. Yeah, in the front row. So we already know each other, but
okay. So my name is Ladislav Mačkala. I'm from Zagreb. I hold a Master of Science degree from Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing. I work as a developer or development manager for 10 years maybe. It's mostly enterprise applications in Java. So I'm quite new to blockchain and cryptocurrencies, maybe 6 months. And I tried trading, investing, mining, and now I'm trying, I'd like to try development and implementing blockchain into business. I work at Policlinica Dentalia. It's a medical tourism company from Zagreb, second largest in Croatia. So there are several coins considering health industry, and I'm interested in implementing some kind of blockchain technology in the company and to learn as much as I can about things that I don't know, and that's ecos and things like that. That's mostly.
Very nice. So the expectations from this project would be, I guess, as you said, to learn something more from the business side.
Yeah,
okay.
From the business side mostly.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I will try to give you that information. Okay, please.
Okay, my name is Michael from Ljubljana. My background is computer science and business administration. I had a small consulting company for the last 10 years, and last year we started to do colleagues a project which is focused on securing and managing personal data, and the solution is based on Ethereum blockchain and Swarm, and we're shortly before the deployment of the first phase.
Very nice. So you're working with Swarm also?
Yes.
And is it a development team? So two more persons?
2 more persons. We are 4 co-founders actually. Well, the fourth one is Victor Pro, if you know possibly. It's the father of Swarm.
Yes, Swarm.
father and mother the same. But we already have a larger team, already 20 people, 25 people.
Excellent. Great.
So my expectation is here to share ideas how to create blockchain businesses.
Yeah, that's my whole idea of this actual also introspection, is because you are the ones that actually in the whole Croatia came here, so it's like 15, 16 people that are interested in this booming space, and I will show you like numbers. And it's we have to know each other because there will be a lot of business in the near future. Okay, thank you. Please.
My name is Tanja Vukovic. I'm a co-founder of a tourism startup called Cryptography. That's actually a platform where clients can buy a yacht, a skipper and a route in one go, so all at once. Usually when you book a sailing holiday, you only book a yacht, and you don't know who your skipper is going to be, where you're going to sail. So we just wrap this into one package. And actually I'm here, I don't know much about blockchain technology. What I know is below basic. But I'm looking for new ideas also which we can implement in our business. And also I'm interested in ICO.
I think as much as I spoke with several participants here, and I know that you're coming from very different, like some are here already 3 years, into the space and are very experienced, some are maybe new. So this is more, you will see, I think it will guide you through everything so everybody can understand and get some value out of it, So thank you for the interest. Okay, moving on.
My name is Igor Dalovsky. I'm from Zagreb. For 20 years or so I've been doing accounting packages for macOS in Croatia, basically on one. And 6 months ago I noticed blockchain and Bitcoin and started looking more into it because I was working for our government on Mac version of identity card software. So that was kind of connected. Cryptography and things like that. It seems like
For academic, right?
Yeah. And my hobby is iPhone and iWatch. So I write some software for iPhone and iWatch, and of course for macOS. And I expect to get new ideas here. What to do next?
I think the group work will show you two of my ideas, but we can expand on those pretty good.
I'm Vladan Strego, I come from Split. I'm a partner and CPO at NetMedia. It's an internet-based company which builds business solutions for automating businesses and mobile solutions for some 20 years now. Me and my brother are both in the same company. We basically, we don't have much experience with blockchain, maybe 6 months or something. But we feel that it's time to be near, and it's time to keep your ears open and see how it develops. It's definitely something that has a lot of future. So we as an IT company want to be near it.
Near it.
So we are here to get new ideas, we are here to support the conference and see what it goes.
Maybe the next Telegram ICO. Have you heard how much, Telegram application, how much they raised on the ICO? 1.7 billion or something like that.
In July.
Crazy.
Yeah, just private investors. That's crazy.
My name is Ivan Strigo, and I'm from the same company. So yeah, business development based on software. I've been doing a little bit of trading, but in general I'm interested to see how to implement blockchain in the business, because we would like to see the benefits of
of it for the clients and make our business as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Great. And lady.
I'm Anna Chavana. I'm chemical engineer. This is a new field for me, so I want to learn something new.
Have you already? How long have you been in the crypto blockchain space? Few months, few weeks.
Just basics.
Just basics. Okay, just for me also to understand like the level audience, you know, on which level I was, so we can talk and organize groups later. Okay. So any expectations, particular from the workshop? To learn, mostly.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on.
Hello, I'm Elvin Travada from Rijeka. My background is very simple. I'm the co-founder of BitLucky with my friend. The background is simple. September 2017, I got the best birthday present ever, to Ethereum on my wallet, and I started. Basically, now I'm here for trading and investing, and later on, the sky's the limit. I'm here to hear new stuff, to learn new things, and see what can we do later on.
Cool, excellent, great.
My name is Luka Klancir. I'm the founder of BitLucky. I'm more than 3 years in cryptocurrencies and blockchain, so my expectations about this is to learn something new, because on other presentations and workshops and so on, I never learned anything new, so show me something.
I hope there is some good stuff for you also. Generally, what's your background?
My background, I was on the faculty of tourism and management, but I never finished that.
Yeah.
And I entered the cryptocurrencies, and I'm doing that for the last 3 years, so only crypto.
Only crypto.
So
Crypto for life. That's great. Me too.
Yeah, my name is Luka, and I'm an embedded programmer. So I'm not really. I've never developed in blockchain. I only know the basics of how the technology works. I've traded a little bit, bought some cryptocurrencies. Don't know much about how the market works and stuff like that. And what I'm expecting is I'm probably gonna start my own business by the end of this year, and I want to see if this hot new topic of cryptocurrencies and blockchain should be implemented into that business, if it makes sense to do this.
You're from Matko's team, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He sent me the presentation of your project.
Oh, he did? What do you think?
It's very interesting.
Does it have space for blockchain?
Yeah, you will see. We will go directly to this kind of model. Hello. So you will see how you guys can validate implementing blockchain to your product. Yes.
Hi, I'm Bojan Islamovic. I'm from Split. My background, I started as programmer 15 years ago, but as I talked too much, they transferred me to consulting and then to sales. So like the last couple of years, I work in Viprnet as integrated telecom solution consultant, and few 2 or 3 years ago, I started my own company for business development. My first thinking was that I will develop software. Then I started building a communication project, and now I'm doing every project management that my clients want, from HR to European funding or whatever. I have even, in fact, one of my clients working with fish, so they don't have computers anywhere. So, but basically, I am in ICT business for long, and I think this is new stuff. And this workshop was my commitment that I will learn something about blockchain. I opened a folder blockchain or bitcoins maybe 2 years ago, but I just putting stuff inside and didn't read anything. So this is I don't know nothing about it, but I would like to learn, and I would like to see how people who are developing business think about it. So maybe it will be helpful in my own company or some project which we're developing. We can put it in blockchain or in Bitcoin or crypto or ICO or whatever.
Excellent. Yeah. Great.
My name is Krove Max and I'm coming from Zagreb. I'm co-founder of Crypt Consulting. It's a new company for making educations and counseling other firms about blockchain. And our goal is just to counsel all startups and ICOs here in Croatia and in the world. And past 2 years I've been researching about blockchain and reviewing the whole market and investing mostly in ICOs and startups. Basically I'm here because I want to learn something more which I can present to other startups and ICOs, actually current entrepreneurs, how to implement the blockchain into their business, which is I think the biggest issue here. Yeah, just implementing blockchain in current businesses. I think that's one of the most important things here in blockchain.
Hello, I'm Ivica Lucic. I'm co-founder and CEO from Cornet, software supplier from Mostar. My English is not so good, so I see you're all will understand Croatian, but the reason I will very čukavat. Pošto se puno vaše izraziti, vjerojatno ste vi mene razumjeli ovako, ali to bi jako bilo malo više i nijanski. A pošto ja dolazim iz Hercegovine, onda ćemo više i nisam reciprociran, znači. Kako se zove, evo ovako, znači ja sam co-founder i osnivač i direktor u firmi Cornet. Cornet se bavi razvojem softvera proizvodne kladionice. Već nekih 20 godina ja sam u tom biznisu, kladioničnom biznisu, samo na različitim stranama, kao priređivač, kao menadžer, kao ne znam nija, evo sad bavimo se razvojem primjenjivanjem svih tih znanja, svih tih procesa u nekakvom softveru. Kako se zove, između ostalog, sam moj nekakav background u nekom financijskom biznisu prije 10 godina sam bio pokrenuo jednu kreditnu organizaciju koja nije poznata ovdje, kakva vrsta financijske institucije nije poznata u Hrvatskoj, poznata u Sloveniji, odnosno imamo jednu dobu predavanja Slovenci u BiH. I tako, sva ta neka znanja u principu objedinjuju, se mogu objediniti kroz neka cryptocurrency, odnosno primjenu tih kriptovaluta. Sad mene zanima na koji način, upoznao sam neke ljude koji mi uspjelo ovo što vam nije uspjelo, vezano za razinu. Međutim, najveći problem tu je brzina obrade podataka i vidim od ovih mlađih koji dosta toga više, ono puno više znaju vjerojatno od tih nekih stvari od nas koji znamo procese. Da li možemo nešto novo naučiti, na koji način primijeniti u postojeće stvari, primjenu blockchaina, odnosno te neke tehnologije.
Ću sad na engleski, na hrvatski. Da se svičamo nazad na engleski.
However you want.
Okay.
I have to be in English.
So, my name is Luka Klancir. I'm coming from Split, actually Kaštela. I'm really one department in a company called Linux Split, which is part of Bundesdruckerei, one big German company. So actually I'm coming from development. I'm in development for 18 years, from Siemens, Troiko, and currently at Maurer. So I'm interested in blockchain. First of all, I'm a real beginner, newbie. Here my knowledge you can measure in hours, not in days or years, like some of years. Here So I'm looking how to apply this new technology in businesses we are doing in our company. We are doing mainly business in area of identification and security, and we have some tips in a certain area in which we can use these technologies. So my expectation of this workshop is to see where we can apply it in the next years.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jelena Pavinic. I finished a master's degree here in Split. I also really Split on computer science. So I'm working at the same company as he is. So I'm development team lead for, a few years, and I'm in this business for 6 or 7 years. So there are some ideas currently what should we do with this and how to implement it in our software. So I would like to learn more. I just bought a few coins and stuff like that, but nothing big, and I just read a bit. So I know some basic knowledge regarding all of this. So I just want to learn more how to implement it in our current software and also.
Okay, thank you. You had a nice newcomer.
So, I just go to the questions. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm Dusan from Ljubljana, Slovenia. My background is mechanical engineering. Then I'm 6-7 years in blockchain. We started with mining, then trading, then developing blockchain solutions for companies, and now I'm in business development of my company that is developing blockchain solutions for companies. So I'm here to know people and see what's up.
What's up?
What's new?
So you said 6 or 7, 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, 6.5.
Excellent. Quite some time. Okay. Thank you all for introducing yourself, and I think it's quite important because a lot of people say that the expectation is to build some network and see how they can work together. Moving on, since I anticipated that there will be here like people with basic level knowledge about blockchains, and also people with higher knowledge that probably know this initial part. But nevertheless, we have to go through it just so we are all on the same side, moving onward. And also, I intended to run this blockchain intro more from business side. You will see how, but also give you some technical concepts, right? So what actually is a blockchain? And most of the time you can find this simple definition that it's a decentralized distributed database of encrypted records, But some developers and some people might disagree with that, because if you call the blockchain a database, then a database has some functionalities that are familiar to all developers, and this is the CRUD system: create, read, update, delete. And what does this actually mean is that on a database you can create, you can write something, you can read from it, you can update the data once you have written it, and you can delete the data. What blockchain has, it has this part. It has just create and read, so you can just write data into the blockchain, which cannot be changed, and you can read the data out of this database. Delete, you don't have. Update, you can discuss if it's a fork or not, So, but this is more for people that know how forks work. But this is more as we'll have like false So that's blockchain on a really simplified level. But the main points that the blockchain has, it has cryptography, it has this system of private and public keys that work together. It is based on distributed networks. So when you think about architecture of computer systems, today they are mostly centralized, meaning that you have some central server and you have other computers that are connecting to it. Distributed is what this image means, so that all computers are communicating with each node in the network. And then the final big part are consensus protocols. Is how those distributed networks on a blockchain come to some sort of an arrangement. How do they decide something is true, something is not true, something is false, something is fake, and those are consensus protocols. I will go more deeper into it with the following slides. So I have checked blockchain through the lens of Bitcoin in this initial session. So the asset, something you know as the cryptocurrency or a token, is actually built in. It's produced and managed completely within the Bitcoin network, within his blockchain. And therefore, the history and quantity of every movement of Bitcoins, or for example on Ethereum, any Ethereum tokens, is mathematically verifiable by the recorded history in this distributed ledger, right? So it's an inherent value of the blockchain, and it will be important later on when we'll be thinking about business cases and assets that are being built on it. Party identity abstraction is, although it's like a fuzzy definition, I like this thought, security by obscurity. It means that the first part that I mentioned, the cryptography part, means that all participants on the blockchain are, you will hear somewhere, anonymous, but they are basically pseudonymous. So you never know the actual identity in the sense of ID or the person name. Well, there are systems which might be interesting to you, like UPort. I think if you've heard about identity. Meaning that individual parties are never identified. Instead, security keys, public and private, are required to gain access to your transactions, to interaction with the network. So you are using these private and public keys for interactions. Only the private key owners know their total aggregated amount of coins, tokens, everything. So you can see a lot of addresses on the web, and you can see maybe one interaction with a specific user, but you don't know how many how many addresses these public keys he possesses. So you can never know actually how many accounts. Traceability or transaction linkage is very important in the whole aspect. It means that every record, like every entry into this database, is linked to the previous transaction. So you always have the traceability of every possible transaction that was verified that happened in the network. This is a very powerful feature that actually startups or companies in supply chain started using, because this is a very important thing in retail sector, where you have a lot of crossings of different goods, and this inherent value of transactions that are happening, that are linked, that can be always traced to the source from the destination, is a very good feature for many products, and it's already built into the blockchain, so to say. Now, transaction scripts. When I say scripts are basically simple business logic that happens. When you say when you look at Bitcoin, you can see it mostly as a payment system, right? Its intention is to just move funds from one address to another. That's mostly its core value. Although it still has some programming language that handles these scripts, and every node in the distributed network applies the same rules, so the network can function as it intended to. However, newer versions of the blockchain have expanded the scope and capabilities, and then Ethereum and networks that are more advanced, like maybe Waves, Neo, have become with much bigger transaction scripts or programming logic that can support business logic, and that's very important, right? If you intend to implement more specific business cases on the blockchain, you need more robust infrastructure. And for now, Ethereum is the, so to say, main leader in this area that gives you capabilities of doing this kind of business logic, or translating the business logic from your business into the blockchain. And we'll touch a little bit more on Ethereum a little bit later. Transaction distribution, okay, every transaction that is happening in this network is somehow distributed. There are standard network protocols that allows every node to receive and apply these rules. And finally, the whole concept of blockchain, and it's very interesting. When Bitcoin, this is just a fun fact, maybe veterans know, when Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper came out in 2009, it explained the concept of a peer-to-peer cashless system, electronic system. And he solved these several problems in computer science with the blockchain, but he never mentioned the word blockchain in his white paper. That's very interesting. It was coined later on with different cryptography that they started using. So blockchain was a product from Satoshi's explanation white paper, but it was never his idea of the blockchain. I mean, the system was actually called blockchain because it has sense to call it like that. So the meaning of the blockchain is that the single standard for how every node stores a transaction data, so our database. Every node has a full copy of the data, so that's very important. So if you remember that image with all the nodes in the distributed network, so you don't have any more a centralized database that handles all the data of something. Is it payments, or is it some other data that is important for a business? But you have a set of that distributed networks where each has a full copy of the data, and they each validate each other with a centralized consensus called mining, which is on the second slide. But every record that is added into this blockchain, the reason why it's called a blockchain, because every block of data has this specific identifier, which is produced once it's created. And this identifier is then used for a hashing process in the I won't go too much in technical details, but it's composed, it's an integral part of the new block that is being created. And this new block, after it's produced, gets a new hash. And this hash goes further, and this way you get an immutable database where you cannot change previous data, and that's a very powerful feature. So that's a very powerful feature in basically every business case where you need integrity of data. So where you need transparency, integrity, and where you need instant verification, blockchain has this system, so to say, integrated. How it's how it's done, it's by a decentralized consensus. So from those three images, if you remember, there was cryptography, there was distributed networks, and there was decentralized consensus. So in blockchain, why I gave a more general term, decentralized consensus, in blockchain it's called something that maybe most of you heard, it's mining. It's called mining, how this whole transaction and ledger and all session gets forward, and how it contains synchronization of a simple thing, whether some transaction is true or false. It's falsified or it's verified. So what miners actually do, for you who haven't, maybe probably some of you know because you are doing it, but what mining actually is, it's imagine that we are all doing transactions, and we are pushing these transactions in this some kind of a cloud, let's say. So transactions are coming in, it's called the memory pool. And what miners do is they basically take a set of transactions and just start and put it into their block, put the hash of the previous block, put the knowns, put some targets, put a lot of different data, and start working on it. They basically just are trying to guess a number, a target of numbers, and the first miner that guessed it announces that he has this new block composed of these new transactions, and this block becomes a new part of the whole blockchain. Other miners can verify this block, but a key point of this model, where it's, so the proof of work has this payment incentive. So why would a miner or anyone that is securing the network do this? Because the whole network is self-sustainable by a model where where the algorithm says, okay, if you are honest and if you confirm these transactions and you find this block, you will be rewarded. And currently, for Bitcoin sake, the reward is 12.5 Bitcoins, right? So this is also the same way how Bitcoins get emitted in the network. So you have like a self-sustainable monetary system of different stakeholders, of people that are doing transactions, of people that are validating and securing those transactions, and the algorithm is the central bank that puts money back into, that adds money into the system. And the great thing with Bitcoin is that, I mean, great. The key point of Bitcoin is it's a deflationary currency. It has a limit of 21 million, and I think just yesterday it was 17 millions mined. Yeah. So this is how Bitcoins get inputted into the network. But I have explained to you, it's not so much important for our next part of the whole business part, but just to give you a sense of how all this works. And this system is called proof of work. Although Ethereum, not yet, but for example, Waves, if you have heard of this platform, uses proof of stake. It's a little bit different consensus algorithm. But this is what it means to have a decentralized consensus. An algorithm that will verify something, some events. In our case, those are transactions that are happening on the Bitcoin financial network. It can be a lot of things. But it's a very important technology that solved several problems in distributed systems because people try to find ways to do this. The first idea was how can we create electronic cash? Now when you think about this, when you have cash, I come here, I give you cash, we made a transaction, nobody else made a transaction. But how can you do that on the internet? Because there's so many intermediaries, someone has to relay a transaction. And it was the first time that Bitcoin introduced, it was actually named electronic peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And that's how some of those problems were solved, like decentralized consensus, the double spend problem, and so on. A little bit late already. Ethereum smart contracts. One last point that I want to say is that most of the things that I will be talking about is based on Ethereum. I'm not sure how familiar are you with Ethereum. Probably, if you're completely new, you probably heard of it. But basically, Ethereum has become the main point for, at the moment, for businesses to implement their applications, because it has the most robust network that can support the one thing that I said before, business logic. So, and they support this through smart contracts, or more specifically through a whole virtual machine on the network that has, for developers, they will know, a Turing complete system where you can do all possible calculations, and with that you can transfer any real-life business model into code and put it on the blockchain, almost everything. So what smart contracts essentially allow you, the performance of credible transactions without third parties. These transactions are traceable and irreversible, and that's a very important part for example, for ICOs. Before we finish, I just wanted to give an overview of something else. Now, what I have talked about now was a public blockchain. Now, this is something you have to differentiate in the space. So, several big players, enterprise players, like IBM, which is Hyperledger Fabric, and R3, which is a consortium of, I don't know, 20 big banks, have started building their own blockchains. Because they, and this is something I can talk about, how I see all this space, but from a business standpoint, they have to, enterprises and corporations cannot put all the data on public blockchains. So Ethereum as a public blockchain is something every person can access, and that was the main point of cryptocurrency, like easily accessible to everyone, open, transparent, public, and the main point here is permissionless. So you don't need anyone's permission to use it. You download the client, you set up a Bitcoin client or Ethereum wallet or something else, and you can use it. However, corporations that are trying to use all those aspects that I showed, traceability, transactions, a decentralized consensus, have moved into their own implementations of blockchains, where smart contracts. So what's it say? Where they have a little bit different approach to solving things. Some of them, like R3 Corda, they don't even have tokens. They don't even have concept of Bitcoin or Ethereum implemented into their system. So this is I wanted to give you an overview, because if you will be in the business side of this whole cryptocurrency space, you will probably run into this kind of systems. You know, maybe a client that is working with IBM for a long time will ask you, hey, what about Hyperledger? Because IBM, and I know it for sure, are already pushing their products out on those platforms. So clients that are working with IBM, that had their infrastructure, that had their servers, will probably be contacted by IBM or someone else. And if you'll be working on those kind of projects, it's good that you know how the space is, how big is the space, and what is happening in it. So I will give you the presentation. You can check it out later and explore a little bit more. We won't have focus on those platforms. It will mostly be on Ethereum and more general blockchain approach. And with that, I would like to finish this first part and give you like 10-15 minutes of break, and then we are moving on to the next part of the agenda, which is blockchain powered future. Ooh, so cool. Man, okay. Feel free to do what you want.
Možemo ostaviti laptop? Da.
Ručak bi bio od pola 1 do... Ja nemam ništa. How do you like it? Search?
No, we start with
I'll stick with this. Pick it like this.
They gave me only this. Come back.
Just read this and
This is G. This is it.
Yeah, I saw that it's a different approach that
Pa nismo što pala, kad smo zadano još ankete dolazi. Vrijeme, koji, samo to da nije. Ja sam se napunio da ću ono prešli što ne vidim.
Onda bude možda tako.
Ako izdrže garantni rok se kartice i napravi se operativne investicije, bit će fantastično. Tehnologija, to zanima, ja ovo sam tehnologija to kako ne zanima, to zanima.
Možemo prosvijesti Armeniju, razvijamo da imamo sami zvače Srbije u pauzu, pa uspeo na Odzad je cyber security, pač smo zrečali elementa smo
i sve jedno
Pa ja sam recimo negdje pozorišto i ajde redom učitelj negdje 350 eura za 8 za 7 mjesec interneta još neki znači
u osnovi mi
znači transakciju u blockchainu ne može mjeriti sa
I still wasn't the thing. Zavisku izgleda da imamo Neurograsp, Audichain. Ne poznaš George Schmerber. On je partner, on je on je bio 3 krat činjen za baš white paperu
ja sam
su nas spraševali takrat na vprašanje, da so pa oni glavni.
Postaje Bitcoin Cash. Njihova cijela ideja je bila Bitcoin i imamo 1 megabit bloka i to
je došlo na novo edukativnu metodu.
Ovo se najbolje zradi ili se zapravo krenuo za sad, aplikacija koja se već na sve usvaćena.
Ali ima tu jako puno ekonomskih
vjerojatno ima.
Kako se zove, ja sam u svemu pomogao.
Ja sam 8 puta više transakcija.
Ja niko enter je 950 dolara. Ja se u turskim, u srpskim, u rubljima.
Puno više transakcija u nedavno. Ali ono ima tu sad
ovo je opasno, ja sam ovo isto misli raditi.
Ja, on ima isto
ali ne moram pratiti još slaganje police jedne za druge. To je opasna stvar zato što svi oni ljudi kad se širi prema gore.
On je to sad pustim, ja sam bi njega bio u prvom mjesecu. Kad je zima, baš je zima u Zagrebu i on je to pasao.
Da, to je bilo
što rekao da si ovdje, sve je to u garaži do ovih.
Super, odlično, međutim šta je ljeto. Imaju postoje, oni ravno, to je dodatna investicija. To je dodatna investicija i radi se tome da ne postoje postoje već namjenski
oni imaju malo drugačiju pristup rješavati nekog problema, znači najgori problem se nađuju kao takvim je scalability.
To je tako poslovni
transakcije.
To je reši glavno
ovo je kompjuter, ovo je
transakcija.
Kako teško su kripto?
Prije sam kupio i pari.
Transakcije po transakcije po
decentralizirana aplikacija gdje ste vi taj pametni ugovor je predstavio oko jednu mačku. Da, mačku. Oni imaju nekakve generacije pa su mogli rasti i to sve. I tu su ljudi počeli da se igrati. To su se ideja bila samo da šalješ nekome transakcije i takve stvari. I tu su ljudi ubili su mrežu, zagušili su mrežu u tom
trenutku. To je nebo hash bila.
Prvo nejasno, znači aplikacija koja je ulovila znači generalne mase da ljudi to možemo koristiti.
Samo ti kebuš lepše sam kebuš ti preko moje podatke, preko centralizirano rješenje, je samo rješenje koje je
i onda se tu, onda se, možda ima nekako, evo ga, onda se dolje imaš
znači imaju onda kriptozone, edukacija, slična razvijaju primjenu na tim sidechainima. To je možda put gdje bi ti zapravo mogu odvojiti nekakvu primjenu konkretnu od glavnog
kolega je nešto radio, ne znam, ima uključeno automatsko isključivanje, nekakvu temperaturu, tamo.
Ne možeš posjetiti kroz kapčan.
Uglavnom tako to čuti, sve na podu, što se to tiče, međutim,
možda još interesantno mi to ne ove to je možda razbijeno, to je prošle novce, a sad bilo
od ovo? Čovjek ima novaca, onda što je
s Kosova, danas? Katolik i u Boni selu živi od Zagreba, ima zlatarsko radionicu i ima on radi se 3D kauče. On ima neke stane programe za modeliranje, onda napravi neki vrag, onda mu napravi kauč, onda to izgleda u sredu ili zlato. To je baš sjedini koji to proizvode.
A šta radi to što odjeva, šta 3D printer?
Da, ima 3D printer koji napravi kauč. Jer ne može direktno. Napravi kauč, onda mu to izgleda srebro, zlato. I onda čovjek dobi navisnicu ili nešto. To je relativno jeftin, a radi ono što praktično nekako gore u taj ne zna napraviti. Sve njeno, da. Sve kupuje ono gotovo, već je. A on može napisati šta god, može neko donesti crtu ili neko nešto, onda prema tome to napravi.
Kako taj 3D printer uopće funkcionira?
Na koji način možeš pristupiti evaluiranju nekakve?
Gradi nešto pomoću boje.
Znači, vi imate
te slojeve, to vikonski i pokove sitno, ali kad on to pređe 1000 puta, on se digne za milimetar. To je dugo radi, to ti traži taj proces sasno. Ali na kraju dobije neki tvrdi kalup, i to suši, on to vosak, on to izlije.
Gdje možeš implementirati?
Ja bilo šta što se isprogramira da se...
Znači on ne može direktno napraviti ništa, nego može kalup napraviti koji se onda izlije nešto. Makar teoretski on može i ove neke plastične dijelove raditi, ali kada je to preskupo, ako ne napravi, njemu treba cijeli dan, materijali vrijeme za to bi koštalo jedno 1000 kuna, pa ne smisla. Ako radi to, može to kuna. To je pređe.
Ne, to mi je muž govorio, ja nisam počela. Kako se zove?
Da, onda se...
Da, baš kao čovjek dođe kod njega ljudi kad se vjenčaju ili nešto, neko hoće baš takvu mužu koja nema igdje na svijetu, neko na centru.
Zašto što sam nešto čekao rijeku, neku riječnu spravili se neko umjetne kukove.
Da, to je ali ne vjerujem da radi prema vašem
mislim, vi ste već ono što to
kosti, jer su ostali kosti, i onda da to savršeno sjedno. Znači on prvo napravi kalup,
ja, onda u suštini radi kalup
i onda to izliju materijal.
Naprave CT. To prenesu, pošto je to već onda u velikom srčamatić. I dobiju to, i onda radi 3D model za to. 3D model to je
jer ne mogu se stvoriti država nas.
A tako mogu personalizirati.
To je, znači u tom. Ja vidim, nisam sad posljeda, nisam taj 3D printer baš proučava, ali to se snimim 3D.
Ekipa koja radi animaciju, sad 2D, 3D, ne znam, nija te neke stvari. Tu još uvijek do nekog momentina, ali ono, vide se po tome, onda se to ključno teško.
To prepoznavanje tablice je baš postoje, to ste prepostavljeni kupili ga reći.
Da znaju, onda je to pogotovo.
Kad se približavaš, on ti već skenira tablicu.
Ja sam radio u prošloj firmi na MBD-u, znači taj sustav nadzora granice, četvrta faza implementacije, gdje smo baš to radili, znači software za ne za prepoznavanje, nego ono cijela skalamerija. Ti kad dolaziš na granicu, ja već vidim, s kim si ti prošli put kad si išao na granicu, sve njegove rekorde u Interpolu i tak dalje. Tako da, kad dođeš na granicu i kad staviš putovnicu u onaj skener, on već sve zna, jer već tamo pritisnuo raid alert, pa ono je tamo već te sprema sa strane ili ne. Dobro, to ti je radio IN2, a kasnije i još neko.
Ne znam, ja sam išao zapaliti vani cigaretu i nažalost pušači.
To već funkcionira u praksi.
Ja još nisam došao do toga da prestanem.
Što se tiče granice, kad si spomenuo.
Pokušavam se natjerati da krenem iz toga.
Nema, film baš nije osnovan.
Se jednostavno baci. Da, mislim što je najgore u našoj toj ljudskoj psihologiji je tako, ako ti nije ništa radiš, a prvi znaci nečega.
2011. Sa suprugom, samo jednu, jer mi je 2 dana tako, ja sam počeo kupovati i da nisam desno sam i sad sam opet počeo slušati jedne 3-4
treba doslovce blockchain u tome ili ne treba?
Nije zbog kakvih zdravstvenih
razloga. Već da daš neki tu se ili možete sljedeći.
Već ono čisto sam me izgubilo smisla.
Ja onako općenito mislim da...
Znao sam sebe uloviti da ja...
Nemaš blockchain doslovce inkorporiran u core.
Ne, ništa, ono, sve tu pušim, dini se, a ne neću već. I ono pitan sam sebe, ono, zašto ja to radim. Ja kad bi se mogao ograničiti, jer je gušt. Hvala,
nekad je gušt, da, ali se može ograničiti na 2-3 cigarete.
Ja sam mogao, kad bi sam sve mogao kontrolirati. Pušim samo kad mi je gušt.
I to je po meni ono čisto...
To je bilo ono.
Dobar.
Ja sam godinama slušao vašu notu, pivo, čašu vina, opet te smete, opet...
Da, ali pušiš samo 3-4 puta dnevno, ne možeš biti gušt, ono popušiš, ne, pardon, cigareta, pardon, nema. Ne možeš biti gušt, ono, 2 cigareta dnevno, jednostavno ne možeš. To nije to. To nije gušt. Ali je gušt u šašu vina zapaliti cigaru ili drugu cigaretu.
Ja sam zapravo to u Splitu imam tetku. Ona cijeli život puši 2 cigarete. Ujutro uz kavu i nakon ručka.
Ja sam bio na kutiju i pol tjednu. Tijekom radnog dana možda par cigareta, ništa, i onda neki vamo opustiš se i kutiju spržiš, ono su gotovo da vidi.
Ja sam došao da 3 kutije kad radim.
Daj dalje problem, ono najbolje kutije. Malo
Je, sam pospaja sam
To je isto ovo vode, ali?
Okay, thank you for coming back. Let's start with the second part, which is more intended for the business validation part. But first, I have this few interesting slides just to give you a perspective where blockchain could be headed for. when you think about blockchain and when you think about industries where it could be really, really beneficial, you have to think about the core elements of the society. Like how can we make them frictionless? And this is a very interesting approach. So I was listening to this presentation. I was actually in Slovenia on blockchain summit, blockchain alliance summit, like 2 or 3 weeks. It was Joseph Lubin, co-founder of Ethereum, was talking. So I got some ideas from his presentation. We have to move the foundational elements of the society from analog and frictional. So if you think about those words, like where everything is so much power and energy is used on stuff that don't matter, into natively digital implementations. And when this process starts happening, it already has, like if you look at the finance sector, if you look from a blockchain perspective, like finances are first on the menu, then those things like money and securities and contracts and agreements, which are currently so slow and reliable on so many parties and stakeholders to validate, to sign, notaries, javni bilježnici, lawyers, clearing houses. It all boils down to this part of trust and identity, which we as a civilization have inherently in our elements of society, and we rely on trusting someone, having the identity of someone, to make any kind of a business transaction, value transfer, any kind of trade, any kind of economical activity. And with all these like things like titles and governmental certificates, like your passports, your birth certificates, it's all reliant, and I've had a very great discussion with several people, it's so much reliant on paper, stamp, inks, you know, like those like resources that are very expensive, and many industries rely on that. So you can just check Croatian bureaucracy, for an example. How many friction, how many unnecessary manual work and labor is there when you have like a lady that sole purpose of existence is to put stamps, is to put biljege, you know, and stuff like that, and just do that, because those are representations. Those are, when she puts the stamp, she basically made a transaction. She approved your something, you know, anything. She made a transaction, but that's a lot of friction. And we need to downsize clearing and settlement time of those kind of things into an instant of transactions. Here is where blockchain and where smart contracts and technology like this really comes into play. Because all this system, the system that I introduced you with before, is needed for this kind of thing. But it helps on so many things, like centralized database entries, subjective jurisprudence. Do you know what that means? Subjective jurisprudence. On creation, subjektivno pravno mišljenje, which you can find everywhere. You know, you can't say you have this inspector that has this view of the law, you have this committee that has some different view of the law, and this is all, you know, like chaos, and so much friction and so much manual work and labor and cost included into this kind of systems, which are core elements of society. And with blockchain, we got this infrastructure. Oh, we got this infrastructure which can help you, which can help us to move all these systems into a native digital infrastructure. where clearing and settlement time will be put into an instant transaction. And for an example, United Arab Emirates are launching a blockchain strategy, and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed said that adoption of blockchain will help the government prepare for future challenges and contribute to saving, this is around $4 billion or their dollars, 4 billion American dollars spent annually on document transaction and documents, 77 million hours of work, reduce government documents by almost 400 million, and this is the best, save 1.6 billion kilometers spent driving. So how much governance system of this kind of country, like also Croatia, costs? And this is, I mean, when you think about it, when I say blockchain powered future, there will be changes, and you can see a lot of information, a lot of things, articles where, you know, people will lose jobs, you know, because something that was until needed to be manually done, where you needed to trust that central party that will come, that gives you stamps or gives you document or gives you clearance, will be replaced with blockchain, you know, with a decentralized consensus, with a distributed system which can enforce rules and laws which are pretty much straightforward, like buying a house, buying a car, or buying anything, to a single dollar transaction. And this is, I have a very good story for this. When we were 3 weeks ago in Slovenia on this conference, then our chairman of the union was also going with us, and he said he's going to Morocco. And I said, will he speak with some, you know, people in the industry, cryptocurrencies from Africa and so on? And he said, oh no, you know, like it's Islam, they don't like cryptocurrencies are not halal, you know, like Islamic finance. And he said, but my friends told me, like, until one sheikh just decides that he will do something on the blockchain, then it will magically appear. And this actually happened like 3 days later. And we could see in the newspapers that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were declared halal. Islamic finance is good with that. And yeah, so when sheikh is intended in some business, you know, Quran changes. It's not a problem. To move all this stuff into the blockchain, we'll need a business process architecture. So, and this, Joseph, what he said is how I completely see the future of blockchains and IT generally, is that there will be many private enterprise blockchains, many private consortium blockchains, and some public blockchains. So, if you think of Ethereum as a very public blockchain, which I talked with a few participants here, which currently is not very scalable. There are new projects coming out. There are implementations from Ethereum that are proposed to solve the scalability issue, but at the moment it's not. It has 12 to 15 transactions per second. So if you go to put this kind of system, which has so many transactions and resources needed onto a public blockchain, it won't work. So those kind of systems will have to be in side chains, for example, from Ethereum, which are more private ones, and then you can imagine, like I have mentioned, United Arab Emirates, where they have like where their model of governance of businesses are into one. For example, Dubai is one private blockchain, and then United Arab Emirates are combined into a consortium blockchain of those countries. Then you have public blockchains like maybe Ethereum or something that are used for maybe some kind of supreme core. And if some of you have checked Ethereum white paper for Plasma network, I don't know how many are familiar with that, but this is an implementation of Ethereum that should allow scalability and should allow side chains under Ethereum, right? So let's say that the main chain of the Ethereum blockchain is where all the transactions currently are going on, so all the funds transfers. And you will have a lot of private Plasma chains that are underneath it, and they will have their own operational activities and structure, whatever business case you want to put on that. And for any disagreement or dispute, they will push maybe some transactions to the public blockchain, where it will be settled, where it should be reconciliated. It will act like a. This is how I understood it, like a supreme court system, so to say, but all on the blockchain and all automated. And the business processes in that case will be distributed around many chains that are based on a use case. And how I see it is that you have, for example, if in a specific use case where you have government of the healthcare supply chain, all those specific companies or party stakeholders will use specific chain for a specific use case, business case. It will be encompassed there. They will access these business processes in a form of an identity construct that each actor controls with their private keys that we talk. So you can say employees, customers, vendors, service providers, anybody that will need some specific resources or interaction with a specific chain, which is, for example, supply chain or of this company or something, then those business processes will interact with other blockchains in a form of state transition graphs. Now, developers here might know this term. It's basically state transition graphs in smart contracts are basically used for business modeling already, I mean, from the dawn of IT, so object-oriented modeling and programming was used to state transition graphs. The basic idea is to define a machine that has a number of states. So what happens in each point of time? And just to give you an example case. This is not for the blockchain. I have one later on for the blockchain for one project that I did. So for you that are more from a economical or rather different development perspective, it's a very easy approach how you model some stuff that is happening on some system that is IT based. Like, okay, this is some kind of a web shop. Then you have an actor that is trying to log in, and this state is waiting. So you can imagine this is a smart contract or something that is waiting until some conditions are met. Okay, if login is okay, then it goes to a new one. Okay, it has an empty cart until I have find some shops, added some items. I have a state of non-empty cart, and I can always add new items. If I clear the cart, I come back. If I have not cleared, I can go to a checkout. And this is more of a structured approach when you will be maybe working with some clients that have specific business cases, where you will have to, if you will be working with smart contracts or something, you will have to think more structurally and try to the actual business logic of a user that is shopping on the website, put it into a model that the developer will be able to read, and that will be easily defined for implementation. And state transition graphs are a very interesting approach. You can check it out. How I think also modeling of different smart contracts, to different blockchains, to different interactions will happen. It's just a standard, let's say, business practice already in development. But it's good for business consultants or people that are interacting with business to know about it. Okay, and this is like my introduction to how I see the future evolving, and how now all those parts that are moving will be coming to you as the point of contact, people that are interested in blockchain, that are working with it, and how you can transfer those ideas or business processes or your own startup ideas or anything onto the blockchain and validate actually the whole project. So my short description of this whole workshop was actually giving you a tool set, product owners, product managers, startup owners, ideas to take some of your business models and take any of your business idea, take the blockchain and see where do they match, how do they match, and what can you do. And this is what I will try to explain in the next few slides. First is the business model canvas. How many of you have heard about business model canvas? Okay, yeah, this is more used in when you are starting a startup, or enterprises when you are evaluating some new implementation and so on. I have this blockchain canvas, but before we go into this, since majority of you don't know the business model canvas, I would like to introduce you a little bit to the idea, because this is how I later on speak with the client and how I lead them through the business. So it's a strategic management and lean startup template for developing new or documenting existing business models. Also, it's a visual chart with elements describing a firm's products, value, proposition, infrastructure, customers, and finances. It assists firms in aligning their activities by illustrating potential trade-offs. It's Wikipedia, I don't know, that's a very precise definition. So the business model canvas looks like this. You can all see it, right? So it has, if I'm not mistaken, nine fields, where each describes a certain part of your business. First off, we start with key partners, like who are the partners that are dependent for your business to operate. I will show you later an example. With who you engage, with what you need to work with. What are the key activities of your startup? What do you need to do to make it push to expand it and so on? What are the resources you need in terms of financial, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of manpower? Value propositions are the most important, so to say, and those are like, okay, what value does your business case give to the market, right? Like, you have to write a few of them, and usually from that you derive the unique selling position, USP, so-called, which when you come to the client you say, I make your life easier, so you don't have to stop at the gas stations because your license plate is already scanned and dang, but this is very rudimentally. This guy has a startup, I have been, so this is the example for that. But this is the value proposition. Customer relationships, how all your customers interact. Which channels do you use? Like for example, they don't have to be, if you're logistics or something, they don't have to be like actual supply channels, but they can be actual channels. How do you get users, traffic sources? How do you bring users onto your website? And customer segments, like who are your users? We have to break it down. Is it a normal average person? Do they have to have good knowledge of internet usage, of computer usage, and so on? And then there are cost and revenue, cost structure and revenue streams, which basically lists down your costs, and revenue streams, how you actually make money with your business. And just to give you a more solid, concrete example, here's, for example, Airbnb, and you can see how they have composed their canvas. So you could think, oh, Airbnb is quite a big system, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, but the main thing, and this is when you talk with clients, because I will show you later, Discover workshop, when you talk with clients, they will tell you a lot of things about their businesses, a lot of information, but you have to structure it. So when you have a glance on this paper, this is the blockchain model I will show you later. When you see this, you can understand how this business operates and what it actually needs. So for Airbnb, key partners are PayPal, investor, travel communities. Interesting, like government and people influencing regulations. Those are key partners. Key activities are platform maintenance, user research, local marketplace development, community, like who are the customer segments, guests, hosts. So all the important stakeholders are on this sheet. And also when you check, okay, what's your cost structure? We're spending a lot on platform design, development, maintenance, and a lot of marketing and community management. And, okay, how do you guys make money? 62% booking fee from the guests, and 3% booking fee from the hosts. And this is their business model. Channels, word of mouth. So they rely very much on reviews and a system that someone will recommend. But this is more of a general viewpoint how the business model canvas operates. I know some of you already know it, but now we'll move forward to the blockchain business canvas. Okay, so blockchain model canvas is actually, I didn't develop it. I saw it on a presentation on DEF CON. For some of you maybe that are in this space know it's the biggest Ethereum conference in the world, and it's basically a model proposed by Adi Chakra. Let me give you možeš zapravo. Eto. It's a model that is an implementation. This is what I showed you. The original business canvas, because the blockchain canvas is an adaptation of the first one, and it has a little bit different value. It has a little bit different characteristics of the whole sheet. So once you all get it, I will try to go through all so you can follow up and see what's at stake. So when you are approached, and usually how this looks like is you have a client or you have a startup or you have an idea where you say, okay, we want to implement blockchain into our business. This can be a guideline where you can start and where you can decide how to do it. First on, you go from system touchpoints. Like, the main questions you should ask yourself are, which system? Nema više.
I didn't want there are extra. Do you have extra?
I had sorry. I had 20 printed out. Okay. Good. Više. First thing you should I don't actually start with system touchpoints. I start with value propositions. So, which customer needs are we solving? How are those needs met today? And how does a blockchain solution meet these needs more effectively? I will give you like an example going on through this. So, you can see a lot in the crypto community like, why doesn't Amazon or Alibaba implement crypto payments? Maybe they will, but they still haven't. Now, I believe probably some of their business analysts and people that are there have looked at this kind of model and said, okay, which customer needs are we solving this kind of implementation? Like if we implement cryptocurrency payments into a web shop, into a very big web shop that has 500 million customers a year. So we're probably solving the needs that from that smaller part of people that have cryptocurrencies that want to pay with crypto. This is the essential need what we are solving. How are those needs met today? Well, the need is to buy something on that side. I have crypto and I want to use it. However, if I have crypto and everything, I probably have a credit card. So I can use that system already, that's already met today with the standard financial system. Now, how does a blockchain solution meet this need more effectively? Well, you can say it has lower transaction fees. It's faster, you know. Depending, it gives you anonymity, for example, if you use specific cryptocurrency like Monero. So, blockchain helps us in this need to do it more effectively. But okay, for whom are we actually creating value? And I jump to this part. For whom we are actually creating value? We are creating value for a set of users that use cryptocurrencies. Correct? Now, if you're Alibaba that has 500 million users, you can check maybe statistics of how many cryptocurrency users are there, and then you cannot find the exact number, but you can find the amount of addresses that are existing on Bitcoin, for example. And that is like 24 million. However, that is not the correct number. I don't believe there is so many people using Bitcoin as a payment. The number is probably pretty much smaller, with the idea that I own, myself have like, I don't know, on Ledger I have 5 or 6 addresses. People can make those addresses much more, so the ratio is not the same. So you can say, okay, let's put a very high on probability. 5 million active users are maybe in cryptocurrency, but this is.
You have people on Coinbase that don't have their own address.
Exactly. Yes.
Or probably that says there are more people using cryptocurrencies.
That could be a good look. Although I'm not sure. I tried to find statistics how many users are there. Most people that you can say, I don't know. Does anybody know how many Coinbase has users?
No, they have a growth rate.
I'm just interested. But for let's say for the sake of some calculations, I went. Maybe it's not true, but I went, for example, 5 million users that are active, that are actively paying with.
They say over 10 million.
Over 10 million.
Yeah.
10 million plus users.
10 million plus users.
But
okay.
It's from them, so.
Yeah. We can say that those users are probably the ones that are more active, but you have to also put variables into the equation, like how many people of those are investing, how many of those are trading, how many of those are actually willing to spend their crypto at a given moment. So you'll get to some sort of a number, which can be like 5 or 6 different numbers, but each of that time, the Alibaba team can define actual value of those customers, you know, and see with the implementation of crypto how much are we getting new customers. But the second part is like this, and this is the most thing where you, if you're working with a client in an enterprise sense, or even in a startup, is system touch points. And this is where I have most of the problems with the clients, is which systems are affected with implementation, for example, of a cryptocurrency payment system. What systems need to change, and who are the product owners of those systems with whom we need to partner? Because if you think more from a business, now here's where you have to think more in a business domain and see, okay, if Alibaba has a payment system and has a massive web shop that works, it probably has some kind of a enterprise resource planning system, right? It has some kind of a system that tracks all the storages, all the logistics, all the sent items and everything, which is probably incredibly big with all the accounts and everything, so those systems are very complex and big. And if they want to implement, and you would think, okay, what is another payment gateway on the Alibaba website? Then you could think, okay, if someone pays with Bitcoin and some existing solutions already exist, then you have, for example, just a use case. I buy one table and I use Bitcoin as a payment. What will happen next is that I will get a gateway where I have like maybe 10 or 15 minutes to send a transaction. Usually this is how payment cryptocurrency gateways work. And then this transaction will take, most of them now today just use one confirmation time, which is 10 minutes in a blockchain Bitcoin network. And those 10 minutes you don't know what happened, you know, if the payment arrived or it did it not. But what happens with the amount, with the table that I just ordered? It should be deduced from the stocks or reserved or put in some kind of a limbo state until this clearing and settlement time is finished, correct? Now, that's a use case how you would solve it. But what is important to solve their already existing enterprise resource planning system to facilitate a payment in cryptocurrencies. So you now have to think about time, how complicated it is to build. Not actually just implement a payment gateway, but which key dependencies exist and who are the product owners. So who is handling our whole enterprise resource planning system? We need to talk with them, we need to have callbacks, we need to have synchronization, we need to have a lot of implementation going on just to implement a payment gateway. Because when you think about it, it should be an easy implementation, but when you start digging more deeper into all the system touch points that this system will connect with, then you get more and more information on which you can decide how complicated it is to build something and which key dependencies don't exist and need to be built. So if you're building just our own private payment gateway like PayPal or something, which is just handles cryptocurrencies, we can do it. But do these exist in the market? Yes, there is coin payments system, maybe some of you have heard, which already gives you a complete solution. But you have to think how you will integrate an already built solution, which is probably from a vendor, into your own system, which has touch points with many stuff in the background that maybe you wouldn't think if you haven't went looking into it. So ERP system, like accounting, how you will be processing those payments,
These dependencies are not only technical, also process and organizational dependencies.
Also processor, this is what I want to go. So accounting, how will your legal team, you know, handle cryptocurrency payments? This is a big issue here in Croatia. You know, nobody knows how you're gonna do it. So it's easy to say I will implement cryptocurrency payment gateway, but when you start digging and you say, oh hey, then this lady Jožica Slavica will call me from accounting and say, what the hell is this? You know, I cannot. Yeah. So this kind of thing should give you basically questions that you want to answer and that you want to put here to be visible, so you can get a sense how complicated is something to build and which key dependencies will be most time consuming to create, use, learn. So this is just an example on for example, because you can see a lot on crypto. Why doesn't Alibaba or Amazon or somebody doesn't implement cryptocurrency payments? because there is a lot of things at stake. It's not just putting a button checkout with Bitcoin, because they have to rearrange a lot of system touch points to facilitate that Bitcoin payment. So this is just a thing to have in mind. Now, value components are also the second part where you have to look, is which value components apply to this kind of implementation, to this product. Now, we talked a lot about the rudimentary implementation of a payment gateway, but if you want a blockchain onto your existing product or platform, you have to check a little bit more about those key points that I mentioned before, and there some of them are here mentioned, like contract execution, scalability, location, security, verification, tracking ledger, transparency, anonymity. So if you're if your system is reliant on many transactions at the moment, then if you check the scalability and if you check some options that you have, like Ethereum blockchain, Base blockchain, Neo blockchain, I don't know, you have to put a list which kind of what kind of infrastructure will be able to support your business model. And I have a lot of clients that come, transparency is a very cool thing in blockchains, right? So you can see all the data that is happening, all the information that is happening, and so on. And the first proposition, how to implement something with their existing model is, okay, I want to be transparent to my customers. I want to show them the real data, show them the sanctions and everything. But the way how I can do it is I can write it into the blockchain. Very good, very cool. But if you put it on the Ethereum blockchain, then each of that transaction costs you 7 cents. 7 cents per transaction. So are you willing to pay for your transparency, depending on how many users you have, depending on how many transactions you have? Are you willing to pay, I don't know, how many, if you have 1,000 transactions, then you pay $700. Did I calculate this correctly? Yeah. So, so you have to think like of each this. You have to think, for example, geography, location, GDPR in EU. Like a lot of people have come to this barrier because the nature of blockchain is that it's stateless. It has servers all around the world. The database is on every and each server node, as I have been drawing there. And not even the GDPR. When I worked with Heineken in my previous company, they have their own company regulations that they have to have a data server in EU. Probably telecoms. Yeah. Yeah. So, so when you come, say, you have this good thing, we can make a smart contract that executes transaction, but you have to think about, okay, my blockchain comes with a lot of set of features that maybe are not very good for my business, like geography, location, like maybe scalability. Okay, but it has good stuff in tracking ledger, in transparency, in anonymity. Maybe some users that are using my product, I don't need to know their identity and name. And if I want to enforce some kind of anonymity, and this is my value proposition, then it's a good thing. But you have to understand that implementing something into a business via a blockchain comes with all those features that are inherently built into the blockchain. So, so if your company, if someone has those kind of corporate policies that the data servers have to be in the EU, then you have to think otherwise. So maybe then a public blockchain is not an explanation solution for you, but it is a private blockchain. Then you can come to different, I mean this is much more advanced for people that want to talk about, but you can make private blockchains proof of authority networks that maybe just solve your business case in that sense. it's very, when I have like a lot of people, you know, like asking me, I want to do this on blockchain or do that, and then I just sit here and go through these canvas, and in many cases, you know, okay, blockchain will be either expensive or it won't solve any particular business problem. However, there are some things that maybe implementing blockchain will give you like an edge on someone, and it's leadership in marketing, you know. Could our new system establish us as a market leader in our segment? So this is an interesting, so like Adi said on his presentation, like if people perceive something as valuable, and this brings value to the company, even though maybe if it lacks some kind of, if you're losing maybe money on some other points, but your final ROI is much bigger because people want to use you because you're a blockchain company, then it's a sound business decision to make it, because the ROI is more bigger than the expenses you use to implement it. However, you have to think about that kind of thing also, because blockchain maturity still needs to happen, and many problems that we have now, like scalability, maybe will be solved already with next blockchains that are coming. I don't know, EOS. They are promising a lot of big things, you know, or Cardano or so on, but nobody has yet tested it in real life environments like Ethereum. And the first big test of Ethereum network was CryptoKitties. We talked a little bit about that, which choked the network like for 3 days because there was an actual use case. People started using it. For you that don't know, CryptoKitties was a game on Ethereum where you could like buy a kitten, which was in the form of a smart contract, and you could send it to your friends. And I never played it, but you could mate it and so on. And every interaction with those kitties was dependent on a transaction, right? Some kind of transaction, some kind of input, some kind of output. And this choked the Ethereum network, like, you know, fees went high, it's crazy. So Ethereum as an enterprise network is not yet ready. However, Consensus, the extended business arm of Ethereum, I don't know if you've heard Consensus systems, they are working a lot on interesting implementations for the Ethereum, for private blockchains, for private enterprises. Moving on. Okay. Let me check. Let me just put the broadcaster a little bit here. I want to show you some of my business cases. Okay.
So, can you open the link actually?
The link? Ah.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
So,
this is one of my kids. Yeah, that's the father.
Ah, that's the father. So, yeah, it's very interesting. This is a whole centralized application, and it works completely on the blockchain, and I mean the interaction with the kitties and so on. I never used it.
Okay. It's another link. Okay, and we will see the child.
Greenies. Yeah, a whole family. That's cool. Paul. Nice. How much have they worth?
Their prices.
Huh?
Their prices.
Yeah, their prices.
Something that money can buy.
Fair enough. I'll make an offer to get it.
If anyone wants to buy, it's cheap.
The best thing about them. It's yours when you buy it, and only yours.
It's only yours.
Except that you don't control the image, I mean the appearance. Just in the blockchain. Yeah. Link to my address.
So, moving on with the blockchain wallet panels, I actually created one that we'll be using later. It's in Google Draw. I have a client now that is like maybe 2 months we are working. They're from Canada. They have a really interesting case for blockchain, for example. They found a lot of movies, indie movies, through different private investors that are from China, that are from all around the world, and they have very big infrastructure requirements for moving that capital all around the world and putting it into, for example, Canada, or incorporating and funding indie movies and so on. And the general idea was here to put their whole system operation business model onto the blockchain and see how they can get benefit from it. So this is how we approached the problem. So you have user segmentation. So these are some kind of users, investors. They are interested into investing in those kind of movies because they fund the movies. Then through the how currently the system works, they invest in the movies, and then in the span of 2 or 3 years they get the return. For example, until the movie is produced, sold to the distributors, pushed on the market, and then gets the share of the return gets back. But they have problems with investing these kind of companies in a traditional sense. Specifically because they have a lot of investors from China, which have strong capital controls, and you cannot move money so easily out of China. It's like crypto. So they have investors. But the question is blockchain awareness expected of the user? Blockchain awareness is expected from investors in some sort, because if they will be using some kind of platform to invest into crypto, they need to know how to use this platform, or we need to find people that will manage that for them in China or in any other part of the world. So we need some kind of educational time frame and cost implemented in that, or a management fee of a person that would do that, right? So you have to think very broadly what will happen if we start implementing this into blockchain. Then we have filmmakers. That would be the actual film investment fund that allocates the money and then invests into different projects or products, movies, indie companies, and so on. Then we have, this is more for a later stage. First stage will be, phase 1 will be implementing the whole system for these two stakeholders. Then we have broadcasters and distributors, which come into the phase after the movie is produced. You have broadcasters that distribute the movie, distributors that distribute the movie, and broadcasters that will air the movie. So they are all stakeholders in this whole value chain of investing into a movie to show it to the final end user. So what were the value propositions specifically for investors? So they have, currently the system is very slow, and they want faster investment facilitation. They want, if a proposal for a movie comes up, if it's good for them, okay, let's invest. Let's fund this movie and start production immediately. But they also want faster liquidation and have ROI from the investment. So if you think about blockchain and tokenizing this kind of investment fund, then it's quite easy to liquidate or sell your shares to another investor that comes later on. And if you want to hold it, it means basically the market, you can hold it and find the final ROI, but the market will probably show its own tendency. And it's important for those investors to be able to liquidate their funds and maybe invest into another movie and make investment systems on the movies, right? So one investor might be interested to come in a later stage and just push if he has particular interest, push the movie when it's produced, when he says to a bigger distributor, to a bigger broadcaster, because it might get more ROI. But a small investor can sell his shares after a 20 to 30% profit and go investing into a new movie. For the filmmakers, the seamless, for them it's then easier for specific teams to fund distribution and allocation of those funds to different indie movie makers or projects and so on. So it's much an easier value proposition than currently if they have one company that comes here then has to create a new company. Here it would all function on Ethereum addresses and funding specific teams with that have a specific Ethereum or funding address. Broadcasters still not very clear here, but for distributors, automated contracts for revenue splits upon sales. So one problem that they have currently is that sales agents and distributors that do this sell it for a higher cut or don't have their own deals, and it's not really transparent, this part of sales. When the movies are being sold to broadcasters or to some different companies, they want to define these percentages and values of the movie to be executed directly upon a trade or upon a selling point for that specific movie. Now, system touchpoints are for them currently very specific in the field of regulations and in the field of their current procurement flows, so to say, how do they procure those deals. For filmmakers, current legal processes, and do you see this good? The whole. So I have actually. This is the actual source file. I can, if you have maybe a mobile device or something, it's all in the drive folder, so you can follow up if you want. If you don't see it very good, but I will tell you all these documents are in the shared folder that I gave to the whole group. So if you want to analyze it and check how it's working, you can do that. Yeah, I don't see, this is even worse. I think it's Google Draw, so it doesn't. The pinch is not working very well. I start rearranging everything. But okay, let's do it like this. For the distributors, it's also an interconnection with existing operational software, like internal ERP systems and their distribution systems and so on. So, but as I said, this is a more later stage where we will come on. So, value components here are for us specifically geography location. So it's very important for us to have investors from all around the world, or at least it's very important for the client that they work with, because the main problems they have is, for example, in China and some other parts of the world to get those funds out, and blockchain could help him facilitate this much faster. Tracking ledger of every transaction that has happened to each film, how many it was funded, so each investor can always see that the funds were allocated correctly. Speed, as I said, faster liquidation on the investment, transparency, contract execution. We put a question mark here. Probably we will go with smart contracts. The initial idea was to create maybe a proof of concept on the Waves platform. I will show you how it was imagined. But if we go into more this business logic domains, then contract execution will be important for us smart contracts as such. But this requires much more thought. I think Ethereum will be chosen as the prime example for this platform. But it's a process, you can see, with the client back and forth, showing them the benefits, showing them what's happening, and trying to find the best solution and best platform while we add it. So Ethereum is not the only one. I love Waves, for example. Waves blockchain, for me, it's a very cool, if you're interested to research, because they have out-of-the-box tokenization models, and they have a centralized exchange built into their system, and it's easy for you to create for a client a proof of concept that they will work. If they are like monetizing some kind of investment fund, you don't need so many smart contracts immediately. You just need to make investments, return and so on, and you can on Waves, with the cost of one Waves, which is $5 or $6, you can create your own token through their interface. I can actually maybe show it later. And like make a proof of concept for the client, because many of them know blockchain, know what can be done, but they don't understand what are all the moving parts, like wallets for your investors, like interaction with the exchanges, which also needs some knowledge, from the side of an investor. So you can really show them the scope, and they will understand, oh, this is much bigger, and then it will take more time, and it will cost more money and more fees for you, and so on. So that's a standard business process. Where we stop? Okay, leadership and marketing. Okay, relatively new approach to investing into indie movies, more exposure and incentive from the investors. So investors can come at a later stage if they have seen that the movie is already produced and shows very good science scenes, trailers, and so on. They can fund it even more, so it can be pushed to maybe bigger broadcasters and distribution companies. The tech leaders that we see now in the space of Netflix and Hulu, and some of the projects that I have started working on a similar but more different approach for streaming services on the blockchain. So key dependencies here for us are the exchange and smart contract for business logic. So exchange, I don't know if you know. So for this particular product, it's very important to be listed on the exchange, or to have a mechanism of trading for those investors. However, listing on an exchange, on a reputable exchange, is quite expensive nowadays in the crypto space, and you have a lot of things you need to go through. DEXs are here, decentralized exchange. I'm really fond of what they are bringing in the future, but they are still even hard for me to use. But for smaller investors, so those are trade-offs that we have to think of. Okay, key dependencies, we need a web app for management. Also, regulatory environment and specific jurisdictions are question here, because this token will ultimately be an asset token, security. And since the company will be incorporated in Canada, they have started looking into regulatory frameworks. And as you know, maybe the crypto guys that are more in the space, Security Exchange Commission, I will talk about regulations later on, in the US has a very, very strong crackdown on ICOs and security tokens, and how you look at will look at tokens that have a return for the investor. But I will talk about tokens a little bit.
Does it apply to creation regulations as well, or just US?
No, creation no.
Okay, yeah.
I actually, since we are on this topic, Charles.
What do you mean that it doesn't apply? Because at the end of the day, you can call any share on your stock exchange, whichever stock exchange, you can call a token, but it's still not a token. You know what I'm saying? So if it has all the characteristics of a share, it's a share. So
correct. Yes.
It does apply, I believe, to Slovenia, to Croatia, to everyone. Because then I can all of a sudden start calling Krka share a token Krka token, but it's not a Krka token. I can call it a flying duck, but it's not.
I was referencing to Security and Exchange Commission. So you're correct here. So if you have an investor, that's why KYC processes have, and that's why most of the ICOs will stop US investors for investing, because if they invest, you are automatically under governed by the laws of the Security Exchange Commission until SEN can reach you and close your company, even if it's in Croatia. But if you make, for example, you have in Ukraine token as a service or something like that, it's a completely securitized token. It relies on ROI to your investors. Now, what I wanted to say that Croatia doesn't have securitization laws as the United States, so it's completely different.
You have a regulator overseeing the Croatian stock exchange, right?
You have HANFA and so on, but the same laws that they need to go for securitization in the States, and it costs, by the way, around $1 million to securitize a token and to be listed somewhere. It's much different. I spoke with Vlaho, he's our chairman of our association. He's a lawyer by interest. And we actually had an inquiry from San Francisco for people to incorporate, and they asked about securitization laws. And they're a little bit, they still exist, but they are different.
Of course, yeah. But you still need to go to procedures. That's my
yes,
point.
but okay, you're correct. But I was referencing maybe more onto this project because they are more under influence on the Canadian and North American. There's also a different law set. There is here is common law. I don't know how they have different laws and so on. But the main point what I want to say is that I don't know how HANFA or anyone would react here if you created a asset token that has dividend shares.
It will not.
It would
not. I don't know. You don't have to go through any process because there's no regulatory framework.
I know, but then I can all of a sudden start, I form a joint stock company, I put out the shares, and I will say, no, it's a token. Then they will come after me because they will, because they have to.
They probably will at some point in the future, but currently I don't think they have a mechanism for deciding what's an asset token and what's a...
Easily, you have all the tests which a paper needs to go through, and if they decide that this is a security in terms of a share or a bond, whatever you want to do it, it's a bond, it's a share. I can call it a flying duck, but it's not.
That's true. However, I
do agree that because it happens the same in Slovenia, our ATVP, which is your HANFA, calls it, we don't touch utility tokens.
Yes.
But as long if I write in my paper that I will have $1 million profit and I will share it among all the token holders, depends on how many tokens do you have, they will say, okay, cool, this is a share. Fine. Then you have to go through the ATVP or HANFA rules. You're there. If you don't, you will probably just get the paper, stop messing around because you'll get a penalty.
Correct. And that's what I was referencing here is because I'm not sure how, and I work with Peter Mertz.
Yeah, he's our advisor, our legal guy also.
And basically every project that you want to put on the blockchain, you have to try to put into the utility token.
Yeah, we all do that. So.
You all do that in Slovenia and so on, but
and it does make sense. It's totally legit because this is Tesla voucher. Tesla did the same. He put out Tesla 3 voucher to finance the development of Tesla 3 car. And this is, if you want to do it the same, if you want to crowdfund your campaign to develop something of value to a user, it's totally legit.
Yeah.
So it's fine. You should do it. It's positive, but not for the wrong reasons, of course.
But there's a problem that are you staying here for the whole day? I have the whole token part.
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's no problem. This is what I actually want. You know, if you have questions, just ask. But just to continue on this more business case, the user relationships are a little bit more detailedly developed, and they were. This was the initial version. So you have North American and European public markets purchases. You have those investors that are investing first into the fund development company, then to the investment fund. And what I want to share here is how you can use this kind of process and model when you are talking businesses and people to really track all your user relations that are happening for a specific business case. How are they all interacting? Now, I cannot share with you the updated version of this because this is the first rudimental version. Still, as I said, when we were talking about smart contracts, it was a little bit more reddish here because this part was not yet very familiar for us. How will we approach? Because we stopped a lot on that. I got like so many documents from Canadian companies how they go through regulations and so on, because this will clearly be an asset token. Because for a utility token, you have to find some specific purpose how something will be used. But we'll talk about that later. This is another part how I approach modeling. But this is not for the movie company in place. It's more. Did I do that? No, not. Yes. Okay. Great. This is when I was developing a system for a loyalty program for a client. But this is just to showcase you tool sets how you can approach when we will be developing maybe your own systems and models, how something will work with the blockchain, with the base blockchain, for example, and with your application and so on. Just to give you a quick overview of how I planned this. So the idea was to use the base blockchain as a settlement layer for all the loyalty points that are being transferred from every user to another user, to a merchant, and so on. And on the base blockchain, you can create a wallet on the base blockchain. You use their app, buy some amount of waves that will be needed for issuing tokens and transaction costs, issue custom tokens. Then you have like a master administrator account, which will distribute tokens to specific users or specific vendors that will be using those loyalty tokens. Then you will have users that will be coming to the platform. They will register. They will create a wallet, so it will be all created on our platform. They will go to wallet address. They can check their balance. They can check the transaction, and each of these activity is communicating with a central application of the business where the business logic is created, and this application is communicating with the base blockchain nodes like post address, like create an address, get an asset, transfer, and so on. And this is how this is basically the step when I finally show the client how the platform will work, you know, in some rudimentary sense of words. And you can use this kind of approach of modeling for your business cases, and I strongly advise you to, so you can get a sense how the whole system will interact with the blockchain and what will happen at each stage. And I was talking about waves. I'm not evangelizing too much, I guess, but from my point of view, they still don't have smart contracts, but just like a few days ago, they have set a few new functionalities on their platform, like multi-signature accounts. So you can have more accounts working, releasing some funds or translating stuff via shared private keys. Token freezing, you have a vesting mechanism for people that you can maybe freeze tokens at a certain point of time and so on. And they are building their smart contract layer where a lot of new business logic will be done. But as I said, I use waves firstly when interacting with a lot of projects and business cases because it's most easiest for me to model a specific business case. Because most includes some kind of a token, most includes some kind of exchange interaction, most includes some kind of a user that has a wallet or something, and then you can build this and show the client, okay, is this exactly what you need or not, or what kind of functionalities you need here, and in many cases to this kind of proof of concept, you come either to a stage, I don't need this, or I need something different, or but it's better than to go heads on and start implementing and start building something just to realize that it's not needed at the end. And some beneficial industries to consider blockchain, I'll be wrapping up here. It's like, okay, finance, manufacturing and supply chain, healthcare, governance, energy. These are industries where I see a lot of potential. From which company are you?
Trip saving.
Trip saving.
Tourism.
I was asking I was asking the colleague in the back.
So what are you doing?
Yes, you're from Slovenia?
Yeah.
Are you maybe from Origin Trail?
No.
Because you're so familiar to me, I don't know where I saw
Maybe
you.
we met in one of the meetings in Slovenia.
Were you on the Blockchain Alliance?
Yeah, exactly. No, not the Alliance, the other one, the Ethereum something the same. They were inventing in Ghana and one of you guys were there. I think we met there.
Maybe.
Could be.
But I wanted to showcase like Slovenians are having very good, interesting projects for example for supply chains, Origin Trail, for healthcare is this new health Trust Health or something.
And you have Aria also.
Yeah. So those industries to me will be first like heavily disrupted, will be attacked because they have very good use cases like I showed you like for governance, like our public Javna Uprava and public administration. There can be a lot of business solutions in these industries, and if you're interested in this kind of implementation in business, I suggest that you maybe start researching a little bit more those industries and what kind of implementations are being built there, because I think more and more business cases will emerge. Energy, there's also a startup here in Croatia, Ampnet. He's actually,
Can you be more specific about healthcare industry? Because I come from dental tourism, let's say. So I was investigating lots of sources about how to apply blockchain in the dental industry, and I'm curious. There are lots of possibilities, but can you be more specific? How?
More specific.
Healthcare, never mind.
More specific. So every user records or document that is being stuff that is being like produced by the doctor or by some stakeholder in the whole network of healthcare operations, like you have drugstores, you have hospitals, you have recovery centers, and so on. All this, they actually need one shared folder of a patient, right? Which can be later on updated through to one single point and distributed to every point in the network of healthcare, and be used or verified or stamped or approved at the instant of a transaction. So every network, I mean, I'm not familiar with the healthcare domain specifically, but I just talked yesterday with one girl that has, that there's also a lot of bureaucracy involved in healthcare. So maybe you have more ideas how it could be implemented, but everywhere you have a lot of stakeholders and bureaucracy, you can leverage blockchain for minimizing interactions.
Yeah, there is lots of various information systems in healthcare. So every hospital, every dentist, every pharmacy or things like that. So, and consider our average patient is, I don't know, 55, low middle class, maybe housewife and or simple worker. So he would be forced to manage his health record on the blockchain. They come to us and they don't know anything about the procedure.
Yeah.
It's their teeth. They know how to pay with cash. I don't think they are stupid, but they are just not apt to technology. So how can someone control who will see his blood results, his, I don't know, pregnancy test or HIV results or things like that? So it's for average user, it's too complicated in this moment to manage his own medical record without help from someone else. So I see that like a big obstacle in implementing this. So I would like to implement my database that is in, I don't know, Postgres in the blockchain. And now what?
I completely agree that the technology, the user interface, myself sometimes, you know, you probably when you do transactions and everything with your private keys and everything, you're very careful, not mess up something and so on. So this layer of user interface and user experience is not yet on a full consumer basis, so open to all the consumers. This still needs to come, because currently, I forgot to put this slide, I saw a slide from Deloitte that mostly all of the projects that are now are in proof of concept phases. All of those, like, nobody has still a big user base of people, feedback, how they are returning. They have maybe a set of users that is using it, that is maybe new to it, and they are implementing and upgrading the systems by that. So blockchain technology is not always the solution. However, for example, there's a good case which I heard in Slovenia from European Commission funding of European projects, so various projects. So they have this several boards that give money to, I don't know, if you are building a farm or something here in Croatia, and they have so many committees that pass through this from European to the national level until those funds are at this farm, right? So every system. Now I'm talking more in a general point of view. Blockchains are meant for this kind of system that every stakeholder shares some data that is important for all of them. So if this farm has been funded and there was a commissioner that came and validated the project and everything and said yes, everything is well, and this is written into the blockchain, then you don't have to have a standard flow which goes here, this exchange, this is approved, this is approved, centralized system or something like that, but you can have everybody talking with the blockchain and validating those results and information. And this is where blockchain is currently now. So using the data, the integrity, the transparency to verify and to remove those frictions and costs that happen in all these chains for validating some kind of a truth. So, but how this user, this is your question from the healthcare, how these actual users use this technology, I still don't know. I mean, this still has to be developed.
It's very user. You have a graphical, easy. You have a graphical user interface, and that's it. It's not the blockchain is just a technology. You at the end of the day, everyone will have a GUI as you have now, web page, whatever app. So you know what I'm saying. And the only difference will be that what now goes into a central database afterwards goes into a blockchain in this case, but at the end of the day you still push the button or click or whatever you do in your app.
Exactly.
In your app.
This stage I think still has to come.
Yeah.
This user
it should be a background technology.
Yes,
exactly.
What's the difference between blockchain and good rule engine?
What do you mean by rule engine?
Ovako, pošto ja ne govorim baš dobro engleski, da ću dobro to objasniti hrvatsko. Nadam se da ćete me razumjeti. Može, ok. Znači, u principu korisnici, imate, radi se ovdje o više usera. Stakeholderi se ovdje razumiju kao useri. U principu korisnici određenih informacija. Koji su u nekom sistemskom lancu koji odobrava sve te neke informacije, zahtjeve. Ako je ovdje konkretno da svi imaju pristupan određenom dokumentu, svi zainteresirani, stakeholderi, da imaju pristup određenom dokumentu. Ako imamo dobar rule engine, znači prava korištenja pristupa nekom databezu, odnosno nekim izvještajima. U suštini dobijete izvještaj ko je bio, gdje je bio, ko je radio, koji zoom, što je korišteno i tako dalje i tako dalje. Ako mi svi ovdje imamo pristup ovom dokumentu, ako kažemo da imamo jedan dobar rule engine koji će reći ja imam pristup cjelokupnom dokumentu, vi imate pristup ovom ovdje dijelu. Tako? Da. Neko treći ima pristup ovom tu dijelu. Razlika, prednost blockchaina u odnosu na ovo. A ako imamo, znači, pod uvjetom da imamo zapisanu povijest koja se ne može pisati. Da je na jednoj i na drugoj strani.
A sad ste opisali zapravo neke funkcionalnosti blockchaina, znači,
ja, ok. Da, lakše ovako.
Da, neke funkcionalnosti blockchaina, znači nešto što centralne, nešto baze podataka kao takve, ne mogu garantirati nekakvu promjenu zapisa, neki incentive, power, koji bi htio nešto alterati ili nečiju korist promijeniti.
Ako ne mogu, ja ću vam navesti primjer iz prakse, pošto radim to, evo slušajte sad ovako. Imate ponudu za klađenje. Dobro. To je meni najbliže, ako ću vama to ispričati, ne znam ko se dolazi ga kladi, ali svi ste vidjeli nekad, ne znam, uglavnom imate, i to je isto, možete primijeniti zube, nije ništa, nije apsolutno nikakva razlika. Imate ponudu za klađenje, koja se kreira, ne znam, nija, što danas, petak, jel? Kreira se za sljedećih 10 dana. I danas su cijene jedne, odnosno koeficijenti. One su danas jedne. One se mijenjaju. Onaj koji je danas kupio nešto, odnosno danas se oprudio, događaj se desiti za 10 dana. Ta cijena se promijenila. Svugdje ima zapisano da se neko, na taj događaj koji će se desiti, da je neko kupio to na današnji dan po toj i toj cijeni. Po toj cijeni, kad taj događaj se desi, sve to obračunava. Znači, postoji čitava povijest tih promjena. Zna se ko je promijenio, kad je promijenio, na koji iznos je promijenio, s kojeg iznosa i tako dalje.
Razlika u tome što vi onda isplaćujete, ovo je u smart konceptu napravljeno, ako se to tako dogodi, automatski će se isplatiti. A vi kao central authority ćete isplatiti ili ne, to je na vama da ćete isplatiti.
Gledajte nešto, mi u principu, sad gledajte, sad koristimo, sad je recimo web platforma, gdje ide, svaki klijent ima svoje table. nije wallet koji je public, koji može plaćati bilo šta, bilo gdje, ali je, ajde, zovemo to virtualni račun. Znači, automatski, dok se desi događaj, dok se ispunio uvjet za smart contract, ide automatska obrada podataka, znači nema ništa klikanja, već se desio, ispunio se uvjet za smart contract, suštinski, dok se obrade podaci prema onome, prema ispunjenim uvjetima, se prebacuje iznos na wallet klijenta.
Da. Ali to je, mislim, ta tehnologija, naravno, to postoji. I blockchain, možete vi implementirati sve te karakteristike koje ima blockchain u nekakvom centralnom, u nekakvom klasičnom Postgresu, bilo koje baze, sve se može, Access, Trisa, sve. Ali taj integritet podataka, znači što se dogodi ako vaša kompanija propadne? Što se dogodi ako vaša kompanija propadne? Ili ja trebam za 10 godina provjeriti da li su svi ti rekordi bili dobri i da ti podaci nisu promijenili. Znači, sad imamo neki specifični business case.
Što se tiče podataka, ništa se ne događa, podaci nisu ovisni o životu kompanije. Podaci su podaci.
Podaci su podaci, ali
znači, ono što ste vi, ne znam, napravili jučer, to je vaša povijest, ali više ne može promijeniti.
Ali ako ja sad recimo kažem...
Može, naravno, ne postoji distribuirana baza podataka i je to zapisano kod svih vas. Postoji jedna. Nije pitanje je li kompanija propala, već pitanje je li data centar crkva.
Točno to, ali meni je
moj... Ako data centar crkve u blockchainu, onda su ovoga...
The biggest question is who trusts your company.
Who trusts you? Znači, vi možete reći, gle, evo ti ovaj rekord podataka i to se tako dovoljno.
To mi je opravdana primjedba, odnosno opravdan razlog, da ako mi svi znamo, onda je povjerenje tu.
Tako
je. To mi je ovo.
Mislim da je ovdje ušteda najveća u biti na mehanizmima verifikacije informacije. I ono gdje će se desiti ta stvar je, možda u nekim slučajima, je u slučaju bilo kojeg distribuiranog sistema najviše u biti ide posla i resursa, para i ovoga, upravo na sinkroniziranost distribucije. I u ovom slučaju, ako je to ispravno složeno po ovom principu, u načelu dobiješ autodistribuiranost sa maksimalnim povjerenjem u svakim u istinitost podataka. I mislim da je tu, što se tiče naših ovih Jira aplikacija, mislim da će se tu u stvari desiti najveće van ovih svih ostalih prednosti. Tako, priča ovako reći, relativno klasičnim aplikacijama.
Ma jasno,
da, to... Ja sam recimo sad gledao booking sisteme na ovom reservation sisteme, gdje moraš imati instantnu verifikaciju i transakciju i povjerljivost u to. Te stvari mislim da će biti ogromne uštede u količini podataka koje moraš imati da bi bile istinite.
Da bi bile istinite.
Te stvari.
Da bi neko potvrdio nekog, da bi neko potvrdio nekog i tako.
Glasački, pitanje brzine obrade svih podataka.
I to je pitanje brzine.
To je ogromni problem.
Blockchain...
Evo neke informacije na 600.000 transakcija u sekundi obrade kreditne, provider kreditnih kartica, blockchain, ne znam, 1000 koliko hoće.
15 transakcija po sekundi i 3 recimo.
Ali su kreditne kartice centralizirane, ovo je decentralizirano, tako sve.
To je tako, međutim, nas koji se bavimo biznisom, koji živimo od toga što zaradimo, ne plaćamo vas koji razvijate. Mene zanima kako će to biti brzo.
If you have a private blockchain, it can be much faster than that, because
that's the solution.
Instead of proof of work, you do proof of stake, and you need to align motivations properly, and you're done. It's all about motivations. Why people don't trust banks? Because they're crooks, and I'm investment banker. Sorry, so I'm saying. So the point is that there are so many bankers were crooked in the past that people said, excuse my French, fuck bankers. Yeah. So now they said Bitcoin, you cannot forge the Bitcoin. That's the point of decentralization. So it's all about the trust. If you align motivations properly inside of the private blockchain, which is properly scalable, you can have millions of transactions in every second. But you can't have proof of work, and you can't have it distributed all over the world. So it's a
trade-off.
My interest is previously private chain, private blockchain.
Sure.
I mean,
if you will want to implement cryptocurrencies, then you will at some portion of your solution you will have to use the public one, at least for the payment part, you know, because you will use a token. But for the data part, you can use your private. So that's what we are doing. We are building three. We will be using three different blockchains.
Very too volatile at the moment. Previše su volatilni, previše odskaču, tako da se nekome ko bi uzimao cryptocurrency za plaćanje, to je previše riskantno.
But you can also solve that. So. You have an instant exchange and you do an instant exchange and it is volatile, I agree, but it's solvable.
Ja volim primjer iz života, ja moj prijatelj kaže, vozi auto iz Njemačke, uglavnom vozio golfove i tako te stvari, kad nam kaže kada voziš onoga Mitsubishi, a Brazil, koji će ja to predati? To je ovako i za cryptocurrency. Sorry.
No problem. Exactly as colleague said, I mean, there's a trade-offs also in blockchain. And there's different consensus algorithms how you can have proof of authority. You can have 5 stakeholders that are important to you, that you trust and that validate the network.